Welcome to WiscoDice!
Hey, yo, folks, I am your host, the Conesy with the Most, and I am joined today by...
Hey, this is Justin, the Meeples Champion here.
And I'm Matt, the Ghost Walker.
And this is episode 137 of the WiscoDice Tabletop Gaming Podcast! Today is January 22nd, 2025, and on today's episode, we'll cover our all-time favorite game to play with our partner, spouse, other significant person that's most awesome in our life that we want to pick out this game for a nice romantic evening of fun games and whatever else it is that we're going to do. I guess this holiday, Valentine's Day, is coming up, so it's important to talk about those kind of things we want to do with our spouses. But first, let's dive into what games we've been playing. And I'm going to go ahead and kick things off today with a game that I really enjoy playing. It's one of my favorite games, but it's hard to get to the table, and that is Nemesis from Awakened Realms. One of the reasons it's a little hard to get to the table is because it takes 4+ hours to play. It's a horror survival board game that you're taking on these intruders, aka effectively the aliens, against you waking up from hibernation sickness, kind of basically on a ship that you've been assigned to with a crewmate that's clearly been slain, and the other players with hidden objectives, not necessarily knowing if their objectives are cooperative or if they're out, or maybe their objective is to make sure that you don't survive, but you're constantly exploring the ship and doing things, and all the while the threat of these intruders are taking place. And then most recently, in my most recent play, we got to play with the Void Seeders expansion, which is really cool because the intruders become these 3 little tiny nest aliens that are psychically projecting into your brains and manifesting these horrors of the larger aliens. So things like since they're manifestations, things like doors no longer matter. If there's a door and they move and you're behind the door, they'll just move through it because it's a figment of your imagination. So it was a lot of fun to play with it recently. Also a bit terrifying at times, and certainly a different style of how do these things work? How do I manipulate them? Versus, say, like the normal intruder aliens that come with the base game. So, Justin, you got to play this with us this past weekend. What did you think of it? What did you think of the Void Seeders in particular?
Yeah. Really enjoyed it for sure. One of the new things it added I really liked a lot, which was the insanity mechanic. So every player got a card where you start out at essentially like no insanity, and as things get worse and worse, your craziness level goes up. And then once in a while you have to draw these panic cards that if you're crazy enough, you're going to do something nuts and try to burn down a room or hurt yourself or attack other people or just do something wild and usually dangerous and usually bad for you. That was a really cool way to add some additional tension to the game, which this is already a tense game. You don't know who your friends are necessarily. There's monsters everywhere, but now you have to worry about, like, if something goes wrong, if the wrong stuff gets drawn out of the bag, I'm going to start going crazy and doing bad things. So I really like that aspect. By the end of the game, I had gotten to the top level of madness, and at some point summoned the big boss queen monster because of like how things played out, because I was like as crazy as you could be right near the end of the game. So that was pretty fun. I like that aspect of it a lot. One other cool thing I like about this game is that it's sort of intended as to play as a cooperative game. Like, hey, we need to try to get to Earth. If we're all doing our friendly goals, we're trying to get to Earth and escape. But it's still very fun and interesting when, like, I think probably almost everyone had a corporate goal in our game, and it makes it really, really interesting when everyone's really just trying to do their own thing and achieve their own goals. Like, it makes for good storytelling in the game, and some surprising moments definitely happened in our game because of that.
This is a game that is very punishing to the players, regardless of whether they're out to get each other because of their goal or not.
Yep.
And one of my observations when playing it, and this is a very similar observation to playing a game, Battlestar Galactica from Fantasy Flight Games, is that I don't think you need to approach it as you're in it for yourself at the start of the game. Things are going to go sideways over the course of the game so significantly that you can play several rounds of the game and not give a thing away, or start playing it like you're focusing like, oh, hey, I need to destroy the eggs in the nest too, or something like that. Or I need to go send the signal. I need to go find that. Little do the other players know that maybe you needed to make sure that player 3 didn't survive. Because chances are good, if the longer you can keep everybody on the ship, the higher the chance that that's just going to happen all on its own.
Yeah.
I will say I haven't played it more recently, but I've always really enjoyed this game when I've played it. Though, Ben, I don't know what you're talking about. Every time I've played it, it's never taken 4 hours. We've been dead in a solid 2.
So in the last 3 or 4 plays, we went through all 16 rounds.
Yeah.
So that makes it like when it goes the full length, it's 4+.
Yeah, I would totally believe that. I'm just saying. I think all the times I've played it, it's been a little bit on the shorter side, but that's because, as you said, this is a game that's very punishing, and that's one of the things that's more interesting about it, because it's like it reminds me of and it's not the same mechanic, but I would say of Pandemic. When things go sideways, they just slide very quickly, and if you're not willing to like send people to troubleshoot in the right areas, it just cascades quickly and out of control.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing how you can mitigate some of that, and that kind of thing happens more when I've observed playing it, and I've got probably 7-8 plays now of it. Is if the players can stick together more early in the game as like two or 3 player fire teams, as they go and explore the group. Like the group needs, if you're playing a full 5-player game, you need to split the party. It just has to happen. You're not going to cover enough ground fast enough to find out to figure out where all the rooms are that you might need to find. But if you can keep the players together in teams, where that way, if one player runs out of ammo and aliens appear, the other player can help deal with it and split the load while you're searching for additional ammo, additional gear, healing things, whatever. It does keep the party or keep the players alive longer. The second everybody goes and splits up, that's usually when, just like in any horror movie, things go sideways for people in a hurry. Word of advice, if you're playing Nemesis, you probably want to try to, even if you don't trust the person that's fire teaming with you, you probably want to stick together. The buddy system will keep you alive.
Yeah.
Very true.
Anyways, that is Nemesis from Awakened Realms. Justin, what else do we have?
Next up, we have Castles of Burgandy. Castles of Burgandy is a classic Euro game from designer Stefan Feld, published by Alea, or the most recent special edition comes from Awakened Realms, also the publisher of Nemesis. Normally, I'd say this usually is about a 2-hour game with a teach, in my experience, and it is for 2 to 4 players. In Castles, you are managing a medieval estate that you're going to develop by adding different kinds of hex tiles to your personal player board. You'll add animals to pastures. You're going to build mines. You'll use ships on rivers to sell goods, and add many different types of buildings to your land, like churches, banks, warehouses, and castles. And you roll dice every turn to determine what kind of actions are available to you. There's some great combo options when you're laying tiles. They usually give you a little special action bonus as you place them onto your board. And you're just sort of competing with the other players to do the best job of developing your estate. This is one that I got early on in my kind of getting into board games, and is definitely one of my favorites. And I believe, Matt, you've played it pretty recently. How did that recent play go?
full transparency, this is the first time I had ever played the game, and I got the opportunity to play the newer special edition. There's a very small, I want to say, expansion. You guys have it in it, Ben. It's just a game I've never come across. I mean, I know, Justin, you've talked about it. I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that really caught me was there's some really cool tiles. There's some really cool things in it, but I think it's the combo mechanics that were really fascinating to me. I will say some of the iconography is small, so if you're a little older and you struggle to, like, sometimes it's like, hey, here's a picture of the other tile, and by the way, it's like 2 millimeters across, and you're like, okay, is it that tile or this tile? So there's a little bit of that, like there's a little bit of eye damage, I think, going on trying to stare at some of the things, but otherwise, once we all figured it out, it was a very smooth play. People could generally play their turns, but every once in a while, you just kind of hit those critical points, and there are some brain burner turns where somebody's like, okay, I really need to think about what's the sequence I want to do here? Because if I do it this way, I can get one extra tile laid this turn, or I can, there's, like you said, there's a lot of interesting mechanics where if you pay attention to the tiles you're picking up, you can get extra draws, you can get extra plays, you can get extra, hey, I completed this thing, so I get to do this other thing for free. And so there's a lot of really interesting mechanics, because when you first stare at the game, I was like, there's a scoring tile here, and it says you can score over 200. That seems unlikely. I think every single player was over 200 at the end of the game. It was, it was like, wow, to see it go that far. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a cool thing where, like, I think after the first couple rounds, we all started to figure out the mechanics of, like, how to do the interesting combos and stuff like that. I think we had advantage of at least 2 of the players had played more, so they were actually freely offering advice, which was nice.
Nice. Yep.
It's a classic board game, a classic Euro that I never had the opportunity to own. And when it came to crowdfunding for this updated version, Suzanne and I had to get it. Once we got it and got it to the table and played it, I'm going to say I'm really appreciative of the fact that we have the high production quality, the plastic tiles, all of that comes in the new special edition version of it. But I'm also was like, why do people love this game so much? This is like, I can see the older Euro design in it.
Yes.
And unfortunately for me, I didn't feel like it held up as well as some of the other older classics that are in that genre. So that said, I want to play it again. I haven't played it enough to make like hey, that was just my initial impressions after the first couple of plays. So I know that's a controversial opinion to say, hey, this thing just didn't blow me away, or I didn't feel like it was amazing or anything like that for a game that is in such a classically held revere. But I think there's probably people out there like myself that if you were like, oh, it's Castle of Burgundy, I'm going to get this really cool edition of it, and then turned around and got it and played it for the first time and went, wait a minute, why did I just spend $200 or whatever I spent on it to get it? You're not alone, but I certainly think you should try it a few more times, because I think I think I'm going to find more game to it than what I found in my initial couple of plays.
Well, and then there's always the expansions that they have. The wine, what is it? The wine or the vineyard expansion. You know, you can definitely augment that to that original older style game with some newer stuff too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of expansions in the box with the whatever edition that we haven't played with either. I don't think so.
Yeah,
there's plenty of stuff in that box to explore. Certainly, and I think it's it's also on Board Game Arena, which is I've played it a couple of times since we got our copy. I went and played a couple of times on Board Game Arena, and I didn't think it was terrible there. I just wanted to say, like, my first couple of plays of it was just like, wait a minute, there are so many better games for half as much money out there in the market right now. Why did I just drop this much money on this really cool edition of this particular game? But I am really glad I have it as a classic. Like, it's a classic. I feel like it's one of those must-have games in the collection. It just, I don't know that it was, I don't know. My verdict's still out on whether the extremely blinged out fancy remake was worth all the pennies.
I will say one thing. I played it in your brand new gaming space, Ben, and shockingly enough, the lights that you have in there made playing the game harder.
Yeah,
Because the
we're
yellow,
very aware of
because he
that.
has yellow lights, and the differentials between some of the tiles are tan and yellow. The
Yeah.
yellow lights made the tan tiles look yellow. So sometimes like it was
Interesting.
challenging to go, wait, am I picking up a yellow tile or a tan tile? So I mean, that was
Lighting in the studio needs to be upgraded a bit, and I don't know if that's just going to be putting in new bulbs or if that's going to be another solution. But
yeah,
yep, that is on the to-do list.
But yeah, I think it's like anything, Ben. I mean, there are some people who are like, "Oh my God, Catan, yada yada yada." Definitely not your favorite game. And while I did enjoy Catan back in the day, I totally see where Ben is coming from, and I like to play it maybe once a year. But it's not a game that I go, "Oh my God, I want to see Catan on the table twice a month" or anything like that. Like, there's some classics that are still really good, fun games to play, but aren't like they don't blow you away, right? This one was just happened to be my first play, and I really enjoyed it. But like, I could see where you're saying it too. So
Suzanne really likes it, and I know Justin, you really like it. So it just didn't hit me with that same. I don't have that nostalgia either. Like if I compare this game against something like Agricola, which I have nostalgia, it might make up a little bit of. Or I just picked up the updated version of Hero Quest. Again, I have nostalgia to the original game. Is that going to play into how much I appreciate or enjoy the gameplay here? I don't know. I think this is a better game than I'm probably giving it credit for, though. So,
yeah, that was Castles of Burgandy. Check out WiscoDice.com for links to the games that we've discussed. And while you're at it, please leave a review of this podcast wherever you download podcasts.
Main topic then, and that's going to be our all-time favorite games to play during the Valentine's Day season, but really it could be date night, could be just any night. We need a little romance in the air, or at least a little downtime away from children and other distractions, where we want to just play a game, maybe over some candlelight, maybe just right after a nice meal, whatever the case might be. But it's really, we're playing a game together with our spouse for a nice romantic evening. And Justin, why don't you kick this off and tell us what games you really like playing with your wife?
So I went to Anna and I specifically asked her, what's your favorite game to play as a couple that you really like? And the answer was the Clever series roll and write games. So that includes That's Pretty Clever, Twice as Clever, Clever Cubed, and the newest one, Clever Forever. This is a series of roll and write games published by Stronghold Games here in the US. These are quick playing, easy to learn roll and write games. And one thing that you got to understand about Anna is she's not really a big fan of learning new rules to a board game. So if she can pick it up quickly and understand how to do it in a short amount of time, that is a huge, huge plus. And this really fits that well. For each of these games, they kind of share a core mechanic where you roll a set of 6 different colored dice and you're going to choose one of them to use on your turn. Generally, it's going to be better for you to choose a higher numbered dice. So once you pick a dice, anything that's lower than the dice you choose goes to a tray, and then the other players get the ability to kind of use that dice for themselves. And you have a sheet of paper that you fill out, marking off matching numbers of dice or filling in the number of the dice that you picked in different colored sections that match the colors of the dice. And they each have their own specific scoring rules and mechanics. But generally, as you pick dice, you fill out different sections or mark off a square that matches your die to build up towards scoring or towards bonuses. So the real fun of these games, and I think one of the things that my wife really likes about them, is that you can work towards building these really cool combo bonus chains. So, I might mark off a column of dice values in one section of my play sheet, and that earns me a blue bonus. So then I can use that blue bonus to go do something, basically use any numbered dice I want in the blue section, right? And then if I complete the one I completed in the blue section might give me a bonus in the pink section. So then I can kind of chain those combos and create this cascade of bonuses to make kind of a power turn. These games are some of the games we have played the most of in my house. For us, is just something we can sit down. We can do this at breakfast. We could do it after dinner. It's not a huge setup. There's not like, a huge amount of stuff we have to relearn to get this going. It's just real easy to step into one of these games, even, one we haven't played in a while. It works about the same way. There's little twists and turns for each version, but we can just easily start playing any one of these games at any time. It is, I'll say, one of the only kinds of games that Anna will come to me and say, I want to play this. Usually I'm like, hey, I got a new game. Let's try this out. And she's up to play. But these are some games that she's like, I like these. Let's play this. And she'll actually bring it to me. She happens to be a big fan of roll and write games, and these are some of her favorites. So that makes these games kind of special for us, that it's one that she really, really got into. She'll even sit down and play them herself. You can play them solo. But obviously it's going to be a little more fun to play with somebody else. So good fun for us. And, if it's not just us, they can play, up to 4 people usually. But works really well as a 2-player game, I think. As long as you're into the roll and writes. I know that's not everybody's thing, but it happens to be our thing. And so this is the game that we really like to play together.
We're not big roll and write people here. Suzanne and I don't gravitate towards them, which doesn't mean that they're bad games. We just don't have very many, and the ones we have played, we haven't really dug into. I love the idea, and you brought up something that for me also is definitely something that is really key to having a great game where we can pick it up, and that is small, easy to set up, easy to tear down.
Yep.
And roll and write games are perfect for that. Absolutely, they're great because it's just a pad of paper, a couple of pencils, and some dice usually, and not much else. And you're off and playing. And so, yeah, absolutely perfect game, perfect type of games. I hadn't actually heard of the Clever series until you brought this up. So once again, the Meeples Champ is up and at it and bringing new games to the table that I've not heard of before. So good job there. And it's awesome to hear how you're able to get your wife to play these games with you.
So Matt, what's your guys' favorite game? Or
well, I think the one that probably hits the table the most when it's just the two of us, and we're just kind of pulling something out for the evening, is Seven Wonders Duel. It's published here in the U.S. by Asmodee. I mean, it's published all throughout the world by different people, but here in the U.S. it's Asmodee. It's a much more compact, easy to pull out version of Seven Wonders. I mean, I love the original Seven Wonders. I mean, but that plays up to 7, I think. But this is a great 2-player game. I like the mechanics. It's easy to play. It's just something that, like, I think, to hit on similar points to yours, this is something my wife will bring to me. We'll pull it out. It's an easy setup, and it's something that we can kind of crank out fairly quickly. And it's not something that we're like, hey, we're going to sit down for like a 4-hour game or 3-4 hour game. Because if we're going to play something longer, we really want to sit down with multiple people, maybe with our kids or something. But if it's just the two of us, we usually are looking for something that's a little bit lighter. But this one's a nice one too, because there's still, I would say, a lot more interaction. It's anybody who's ever played Seven Wonders knows there's plenty of, a little bit of combat, a little bit of this, so Seven Wonders Duel, I think, encompasses some of that, but then you're still like competing with each other. I don't even think I've ever beaten my wife at this game, but it's still fun. It's a quick setup, right? I mean, you just pull out the 3 decks, shuffle them. It has a sort of like set up the cards in this specific way, and there's certainly elements of luck, but you can follow different strategies. You can win the game by the traditional build the wonders, or you can win the game by going after science, or I'm going to pick all the combat cards and beat you into submission, because you can win the game quickly if you just go hard into combat too. So
yeah, you mentioned something interesting that I forgot to mention, which may be an important factor here. We'll see what Ben says. in the clever games, my wife consistently beats me as well. So there might be a theme going on here. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I like it just from that. I mean, it's like I said, it's a compact box, easy to pull off the shelf and set up and just kind of get going in a couple of minutes. And it's not like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good Euro. I like them, but sometimes you're going to spend a solid half an hour setting the thing up before you're ever going to roll a dice or play some worker.
So are you going to look into the new Lord of the Rings duel game that is by these same guys? I think that just came out, actually.
I've thought about it. I just haven't looked at it that close. I mean, I'm assuming it's based off of the same system. And
Yeah,
I really enjoy set. I am a big fan of Lord of the Rings, but I think I am currently the only fan of the Lord of the Rings in my household. So.
Oh, okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I attempted to have all of them watch the movies, but I also have a lot of I have a lot of people with ADHD, and for some reason, 3-hour movies are not very compatible with ADHD. So
yeah.
So,
Seven Wonders Duel got a ton of play here too. Absolutely, right up until we got the expansions for it, and then Suzanne couldn't beat me, and so therefore she was done with
it. So they do have that problem. It's just reversed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think here we have. We don't want a game that typically one person tends to win a whole lot. Right. Although I think Suzanne figures out how I like to play a game, and then we'll build her strategy to counter how I like to play a game. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know I had necessarily a play style, but she's figured out my play style and will play to that. So I usually don't win a whole lot after the first playthrough anyways with her, but this is one where, once the expansions got added, she got a bit frustrated. And I think that's probably more that I just figured out the Seven Wonders dual engine better than she did.
Mm-hmm. Mm. How about you, Ben, though? What do you like to play with Suzanne?
So we like to play, and this is something that, like, when we first got our big Henry game table from Geek and Son, and we both built our little 10 game list. That was going to be the first game list, and we compared our list as the only game that showed up on that list on both of us. And it is a bigger setup game. It is a bigger game than any of the games prior so far we've talked about. And it's probably the biggest game we're going to talk about today. It is Spirit Island from Greater Than Games. I love Spirit Island, but I don't love playing it in larger groups. Mm-hmm. It feels like it always takes too long, or when I'm playing it in a larger group, there's almost always somebody that hasn't played it before, and because it's co-op and it can be very much like, well, you just need to do this to help us out, or you need to do that, or whatever. Whereas when Suzanne and I are playing it, we're constantly we're still playing our own games. There's no quarterbacking in this co-op for us. But we are actively talking to each other and trying to figure out how to deal with the threats that are on the board and how we're going to push them back as we inhabit these, as we're playing the game as these spirits trying to throw out these settlers off of, this island. I love it because it's thematic. I love it because it has all of this cool art and everything is all this cool little asymmetry. While you're doing it, we can ramp the game up if we want to play it more higher difficulty, or if we want to play it a little easier, we can do whatever we need to. We've done a pretty good job with inserts and other pieces to make the setup and tear down a little bit better. But it is a bigger game. It does take a little bit more time to set up and tear down, which may be why we don't play it quite as much as we might play some other games when it's just the two of us and we're not working on review content or just playing something to try to get it off the looking for players table for the first time. Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of very fond memories of since we picked the game up the first time, of sitting there playing with Suzanne, trying to collaboratively defeat the game. And the best part is neither of us have to feel like we had to be the loser unless we both lost, right? We both share the victory together or we don't. If we don't, well, we're going to re-rack it and take it on again.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, this is one I've actually never played. I've heard you guys talk about it multiple times, but
it's hard to get to a game night because I think it takes, like, you can play up to 6 with like the expansion stuff we have, but like, good Lord, a 6-player game of this, and I know, like, if you had 6 people that all played Spirit Island pretty regularly, I think you could play it in a reasonable amount of time. But usually when I end up with like 3 or 4 players and two of them are new, it's going to be a 3+ hour game, and
yeah, that's hard to do on a game night.
That's hard on a game night.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I'm getting games together for like longer plays like that, I have so many games I would rather play, like Nemesis that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, no, I've got a laundry list of games that I like to pull out when it's a longer day, or if we're like running like a games day or something, because they do take 4 hours or maybe even more sometimes. So
well, I'm glad we got a co-op game on there. That's definitely in the spirit of playing with your spouse and your partner.
Yeah, I like that.
Doing something together.
Suzanne couldn't join us today for the main recording, but we're gonna clip over to a bit where Suzanne and I got together to talk about her pick for this, and then we'll kick back just to wrap things up here with kind of our final thoughts, maybe some honorable mention games or something like that.
And we're back. And now I'm joined by the one, the only, the illustrious, the fabulous, the wonderful. It is Suzanne. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well.
Hey, so we were talking about our favorite games to play with our significant other. And while I know you weren't able to make the recording, we wanted to be able to include you in this because I am almost for sure you have something you like to play with me that wasn't what I said I wanted to play with you. So
yes.
What is this game? What is this mystery game?
So this mystery game is a game that we started playing together early when we were dating. And so early when we were dating. So that made this a game that has very fond memories, and I enjoy playing with my significant other. It is called Brewcrafters Travel Card Game, which is also known as Microbrewers. So
ours says Brewcrafters on it.
Yes, ours says cooler. Brewcrafters. Microbrewers is the exact same game. It's published by Greater Than Games. It's it's a basically card size box, and it's based on the Dice Hate Me game release of Brewcrafters, which is this card game version of it, though, is one of the first games Conesy and I would take along on dates and play. And we've also, when we were dating, spent a lot of time together tasting and learning about different beer styles. And so because of all of these wonderful memories, it's one of my favorite games to play with you.
That's cool. Like, I remember playing Brewcrafters, the regular board game. So when this came out as like the travel version of it, I was super excited to get a copy of it. And I think as we were discovering who each other was initially, we spent a lot of time because, Wisconsin, right? We have a little bit of, there might be a little bit of a drinking culture here. And I love trying new beers, and so it was kind of our exploration to go to these different venues and places to try out new beer, and this was a super convenient small box game to take with us, and I had no idea you actually enjoyed it this much, so definitely kind of a surprise to me that it showed up here as a game you loved playing with me. But it doesn't surprise me because it was one of those early ones that I think we probably have a lot of really good memories about because it was one of those things where we were using to kind of help discover who each other was.
Yep. Yes. So, and this is a game that you can play with 2 to 4 players. Maybe once we played it at 3 players. But it takes only about 30 minutes. And you are rival craft brewers that are perfecting your beer recipes. So you have different goals you need to manage your brewing process, refine your recipes, and then, of course, brew beers. And in the end, it's all about points. So it's card-based game, makes it nice for traveling, and the cards are multi-use. So it kind of cuts down on the amount of space you need and everything. They can help with brewing actions, upgrades, ingredients. So you have to strategically decide what you're going to do with each of these cards because, you have limited resources, just like if you have a brewery, So on your turn, you're going to draw cards. So you draw new cards into your hand. And then with those cards, you are going to spend these cards to either brew beer, upgrade, or even hire some workers. Balancing, you have to have ingredients and make sure you have them in your hand to have, hops, yeast, and malt. And then you're going to, again, score points based on what recipes you are able to successfully brew. So, and then you can get some bonus points based on other cards that you have played to upgrade your brewery. So there's lots of things I do enjoy about this game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's streamlined. All right. So it's pretty, like these card-based, multi-use cards, you're just always grabbing a card, playing cards, right? So there's not many other components. You have to figure out what the heck they do. The theme of this definitely comes through with what you are required to use and what you use to upgrade your brewery.
For sure.
Yeah. So you kind of get that feel of what it's like to be a brewer and what needs to go into a beer. And you can replay it. We've played it several times. Your card draws are different, what you're trying to go for, what you can afford. So, it's just a nice, simple game that has really good memories attached to us and a theme that we, both enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I would definitely enjoy playing this game again. The more you talk about it, the more I'm kind of excited to play it. But we'll have to think about it. We're starting to get a backlog of games that we keep talking about from the past that we still have in the collection that maybe there'll be a resurgence back to the table because we haven't played it in a year or two.
Yes.
And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think this game we stopped playing a little bit because with the pandemic, we were not going out and traveling and sitting out to eat as much. And so it's on our small box shelf and it's there, but we just haven't needed it.
Goes into one of those goals you had of small box game storage, because that is like our small box game storage is, I think it's okay, but it's not really with the rest of the games and stuff. So a lot of times we forget they're there now as well. So we need to definitely solve that. So I definitely am all aboard of the small box game storage goal of yours for this year. So, and you can check out all of our goals for 2025 on our YouTube video that Suzanne and I did. You'll find the link in the show notes on our website. What's our website's address? I can't remember. It always slips my mind.
Oh my gosh. It's WiscoDice.com. WiscoDice.com.
Yes. WiscoDice.com for all the information about that, as well as links to get any of these games. We'll have actually Amazon affiliate links for most of them. So if you want to support the show, of course, we always tell folks to support your friendly local game store first. We absolutely think that's critical and important. But if you want to support the show, you can pick up any of these games using our Amazon affiliate links in our show notes on our blog at WiscoDice.com. Now, I asked the rest of the hosts while we were doing this kind of on the fly. Nobody was prepared for this question, but I did want to ask you, were there any honorable mention games that you like to play with me that you wanted to just kind of give a quick mention or shout out to?
Well, mine would be Spirit Island, which I believe you talked about because that was your favorite game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I very much enjoy the campaign games that Conesy and I play together.
Yes.
So, I really want to finish our Gloomhaven campaign.
Yep.
I've had a lot of fun playing the pandemic campaigns.
You're powering through Pandemic Season 0 with me was like a freakishly fast playthrough of that. Like we were done within like 24 hours.
Weekend type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one, I guess the other top game that I like playing with you would be the Pathfinder game.
Yeah.
Where
Pathfinder the card game. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, Pathfinder
Not the
card
role-playing game.
Yes, where I get to roll dice, and I had an excuse to buy dice before I played RPGs.
Yeah, when you were still convinced that RPGs were just hogwash.
Well, they seem to not have enough of a structure for me.
Now you're a serious RPGer.
I don't think
you played
so.
under different DMs now. You've played different games. You're playing one shots. Next thing you know, you're going to be sitting behind the screen, running your own games.
I don't know. That may be a 2026 goal, not this year.
Anyways, I did want to thank you for taking the time to put this together. I know we didn't have to. We could have just released the episode without you, but it felt wrong to in this, our romantic episode, talking about what games we love playing with our spouses, not to have everybody have a chance to have a voice. So thanks so much for taking the time. We're going to go ahead and get back to the rest of the main show and wrap things up with the rest of the hosts, honorable mentions, and then we'll close it out.
Are there any other honorable mention games that you guys have that you might want to just mention or call out?
Yeah, for sure. Again, another roll and write that we've actually gotten into recently is Fleet the Dice game. Again, Anna really likes roll and writes, and I do as well. And this game is just about fishing up a bunch of different types of fish and building a little fishing village. It's another quick playing, easy to learn roll and write.
Fleet was such a good game. I'm interested. Yeah. I've heard good things about the roll and write version of it.
Yeah, it's great. And then honestly, we really like Everdell. That'd be our probably other one that we play regularly as a couple. Everdell's a good one.
Yeah.
And I happen to know a couple that likes Everdell a whole lot.
Yeah. We play that one. That one hits the table pretty frequently. I think the other one for us, and it's another kind of quick one that we pull out periodically, is there's a whole series of games called Silver. There's there's Silver Dagger, Silver Bullet. They're fairly quick. I mean, they could play up to 4, but my wife and I typically will end up playing them 2-player, and you play through a series of rounds, and they're sort of based on the werewolf universe. Everybody's ever played Ultimate Werewolf. They're based on that, but it's a card game, and it's very quick to learn. But it's nice, kind of quick, sit around the table, play a few hands of that, and see who kills the other one for the day, because it always feels a little lopsided for some reason, but it's always one person or the other for some reason that night. So, but it's a nice, quick, easy card game. Pull it out of the box, boom, done.
Suzanne really like playing Beer and Bread from Capstone Games. It's kind of a little 2-player. It's a 2-player only game, and we just talked about it on our YouTube channel. We ranked all of our 2-player games, and Beer and Bread is our favorite of all of the 2-player only games that we have. We've got 14 or 15 games, I think, in that list. So it's a pretty interesting list of games that we've picked up over the years. They're obviously all good. We bought them for a reason. Beer and Bread's a nice little Euro. It's interesting. So you need to make bread and beer, and you need to collect resources so that you can make beer and bread. But you can only really make one of each at a time before you have to clear out your brewery and your bakehouse and make the next batch. And if you collect too many ingredients where you can't hold them, because you're only able to hold 9 ingredients or 12 ingredients or something like that, you have to give them to the other player if you overproduce, basically. So, and then they can choose to drop them or claim them or whatever. So it's a real interesting. And then you have the cards are all dual purpose too. So you can either make them as breads or beers, or you can tuck them under the main game board for an ability that your town on this side of the river gets to have that the other town on the other side of the river, which is the other player, doesn't get to have. So it might be bonuses for scoring. And then at the end of the game, it's really cool because only like if you made 6 beer cards and 3 bread cards, you're going to score your bread cards. So whichever set of cards you had the most of, that or the least of, is what you're going to score for your final score. So interesting kind of way it balances it, so you're not constantly doing one or the other or anything else like that you're forced to kind of make a nice balanced level set of different types of things ultimately at the end for end game scoring. So really cool little game. I like it a lot. Both of us like it a lot, and it doesn't get to the table nearly enough because the looking for players table is whatever's the newest game. That's probably the game we're getting that set up for a romantic game night. All right, I think that's it. So we've covered all of the games that we love to play for our romantic game nights, and that includes great games like Microbrewers, which was Suzanne's pick, mine's Spirit Island. Matt, you had Seven Wonders Duel, and Justin, you had the Clever series of roll and write games. Also, we talked about the games we've been playing. That included Castles of Burgandy, particularly the special edition version, and Nemesis, the big horror survival space game that feels like it's an Aliens movie all over again. All right, well, until next time, folks, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Peace out.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you leave a review of this show wherever your favorite place is to find podcasts. Oh, and by the way, give us a like on our Facebook page. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest while you're at it. If you haven't looked recently, make sure you catch up on the blog at WiscoDice.com. Hey, Brian, what's that site?
Oh, darn, I forget. Justin, what's our website again?
WiscoDice.com.
That's right, it's WiscoDice.com. And until next time, everyone, peace out.